You know that satisfying chunk of the car door closing and how satisfying that feeling is after a long day? You guys know that feeling, right? The one where you, after a really long day, you're tired, you're sweating, you're hot, and you get into a car and you have that satisfying, just that chunk, right? That closing of the door, that closing off of the outside world, the feeling of, I can finally just be myself, right? You know what I mean? You're finally in your own little space. You know those moments after a certain concert or after a certain event with that one person, when you both get in the car and say, wow, that was just so special. Or did that really just happen? And you have to hold the wheel with white knuckles to ground yourself? You know those conversations you have with that one person in a parked car or in standstill traffic? Those late night drives, those early morning drives, those close calls, those backseat naps, those breakdowns in the middle of nowhere, those hot boxes? I know some of y'all know. Every single one of y'all watching this right now probably has some positive or negative memory associated with a car that wouldn't be so strong if you weren't in a car. Who would have known this would all boil down to space and place? Let me tell y'all a story and break it down a little bit for you. This is my car. There are many just like it, but this one's mine. His name is Dexter, and he's a 2016 Hyundai Sonata Sport. This is what he looks like. Just a little bit of a mess, you know what I mean? He's kind of dirty, but don't just ignore the hole in the bumper. That's kind of its own separate story. A couple weird stickers here and there on the window, again, whole separate other story. Dexter's my safe space where I go to drive to and from school, work, and everywhere in between. Dexter is special to me because I ended up with him from tragic circumstances. When I first started driving, I drove my family's 2004 Toyota Sienna. It was silver and it was so ugly. I hated it so much, but it was a humble beginning for me as a driver. I spent a lot of time riding in shotgun, the backseat, and even the trunk of that van when I was a kid. Some of the most important conversations me and my family ever had occurred in that little space. I drove it to high school for a few months, and then one day the engine randomly just blew up and my family finally had to let go of the van. This is where I got my first car, the Ford Fusion I once called Jerry. My first car was hit from behind by someone who was texting and driving only 6 months into me owning it, totaling it on the spot. When I first got Dexter, I was too afraid to even think about food while driving. Obviously, things have changed since then. You're gonna be the one that saves me. I ended up with Dexter as a result of the person at fault's insurance check, and I've come closer with it ever since then. When I first got Dexter, I felt uneasy driving around, like I was in someone else's house, sitting on someone else's couch. Over the last 3 years, however, I've grown more comfortable in the space that is my car. Dexter Toe calls space the practice place, constantly moving and changing, a continuous social dynamic. My car could be classified as a perceived or lived face, as many dreams and memories are associated with this car. Place is to space what solid is to fluid, right? So the road is to my car what place is to space. When we think of a place, we think of somewhere we can't do much to change, but we ourselves change in order to adapt to it. Place is a projection of space to human surface. Think of the road, for instance. Not much ever really changes, especially with the roads in Denton and potholes. There are signs on the road that can tell us what to do, but there is never any change. The lanes never change their flow. The stories themselves change, however. Those conversations you have on hour 3 of a 5-hour trip are far different from the ones you have on the way to the grocery store. When you're driving to the hospital, you'll have a much bigger sense of urgency than you are if you're driving to Whataburger for the 5th time this week. The place that you're in when you're driving has a large impact on the stories and the way you tell them, the way they'll be remembered as well. So does the place you're driving to. When we think of space, we think of an open and subjective area that we are comfortable with. We think of our rooms, our apartments, and our cars, someplace we can access ourselves with not governing our behavior whatsoever. What makes all the memories in these spaces so special, though? Well, think of those nights where you all packed in that one tiny car, or you were the only one in that giant bus, or something along those lines, something where proximity made the story so much more memorable. Space is something that we consider so personal, something that changes and is changed by us. We change our space, adapting it to fit our everyday needs. When our space is changed by others or is challenged, this brings us out of our comfort zone, creating the best stories possible. Space is where you feel comfortable, places where you feel governed. The road governs how you feel, but your own car setup and personalization grounds it back to you, doesn't it? The stories that come from my car come from the space and place that my car encompasses. The memories I have from driving my car, and the memories of the things I have seen happen on the road. Without the connection to space and place, ourselves as homeowners may really never understand the true importance of the stories that we tell as we drive down the roads to our destinations. Excuse me.